Good afternoon, Dr. Barbara Johnson. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you, Ron, and yourself.
Fantastic. And I cannot believe we're on the fifth week of Winter Warrior, and we're still on chapter four. And it's part one. We're going to talk about um, chapter four. Can you maybe just explain why we're breaking it, chapter four down in certain parts for the listeners?
Certainly. Sorry, I'm just trying to grab my books. Um, so, chapter 4 comes out of Winter Warrior. And why we have broken it up into three parts now is because of the fact that chapter 4 describes all eight of the dimensions of life. And clearly, too much information for a 20-minute podcast. So, therefore, it was the first three, the second three, and now today we're doing 7 and 8, which are the contribution part and the soul part.
And I think it's a great opportunity for the listeners of chapter four being broken down into certain sectors so they can go back into the YouTube video and say, okay, I want to know more about what this chapter can offer and use us as part as a learning for their own mindset and grow themselves through using the YouTube video. Um, as listeners know, this book is not just about reading, it's by putting it into practice and always make sure that you've got a colored pen like I've got here, where you can click the different colors and use it for your journaling, because by applying that into the this chapter, you will start learning and growing going forward. So, Barbara, the first question I would like to find out by you. You move from personal growth of the previous six dimensions now into contribution. Why is contribution such a critical step beyond self-development?
Self development on its own, contribution on its own, is or can become self absorbing. So when the real shift happens is when it becomes not only about me, firstly me, but not only about me, but when it becomes, so what then can I give? That's where the meaning of life comes. That's where the authentic self comes, that we contribute from a correct place and from the correct reasons. So we're contributing without the need for affirmation or approval or recognition. We contribute from the perspective of my soul speaks here, and therefore what happens within me.
I think, it's a different way of looking at the contribution of as an individual. If you start looking at yourself, what do you contribute? How do you contribute to yourself? Especially when you look at yourself in the mirror, what have you contributed? If you take your life's journey and you start writing it down, then you realize what you've really accomplished through everything what you've done. And I think this is great with what your book's all about, the journey of life. Which brings us to the second point. You speak about the soul dimensions. How do you define that the way that's practical, not abstract and spiritual fluff?
So, from the perspective of soul, from a practical, everyday perspective, for me, it isn't something mystical and or religious or airy fairy. It is practical alignment. And what does that practical alignment look like? It looks like peace and joy and clarity and moving forward. Today, I was out of alignment with my soul. I was irritated and annoyed and lacked clarity. Soul is about self, coming back to self, being the authentic self, finding self, pulling self towards self, knowing what is correct for you and what is not correct for you. Circumstances within our energy and in our environment can throw us off track. The trick here, I believe, Ron, is to acknowledge it, talk to it, scream at it if you have to, but find self again in the alignment of what is true for self and what is true for your way forward.
And I just like what you just said, understanding self. And I was listening to a TikTok video and say sometimes we feel down and out and stuff like that, things might not work in your favor. To give you something simple that happened today. Okay, I went to go put in petrol. And in this on this with this petrol station, everything is electronic. First, have to put your debit card in, and all of a sudden, I said to Dawn, "There's 28 pounds that's been gone." But meantime, somebody else's number amount is on there. Oh,
Oh,
hang on. Then the petrol, the machine went back to zero. Oh, so as soon as I put the petrol in, because everything is self-help in England, all of a sudden 120 pound. I says, oh, it's going to take 120 pound. No, it's a maximum because I didn't read because you're panicking because it's something new. And
yes.
and all of a sudden I put in 50 pound and Bob's your uncle, I'm happy. So all of this hesitation, pressure and stuff like that, I'm happy to go. 3 kilometers down the road, I look in the rearview mirror, I never put on my petrol cap. I panicked. And you know what? There's a TikTok video that says, just put a smile on your face, everything will be okay. Doesn't matter what you're going through. And I drove all the way back and somebody put it back onto the filling station. So, and sometimes this is what's so important about what you just said, your soul. All of a sudden you panic, but it's not as bad. The petrol cap will be there. If not, you can always purchase one. Don't make it a big thing. And I thought I'd just mention it as a story, and I think it's so relevant what we're just speaking about. Question 3. Many people feel lost when it comes to purpose of their lives. I mean, I love the word purpose. What's the biggest misconception about people have about finding their contribution to life?
So it's a loaded question, Ron. Purpose, first of all, doesn't show up on a silver platter. Purpose often is in a process already when we come to recognize something is happening, something is changing, something is driving you differently. For instance, I came to Johannesburg with my 2 yellow suitcases on the way to Italy to retire. My grandson's situation was dramatic and needed my assistance. Once I had decided I was now going to stay in Johannesburg, find accommodation in walking distance of his school, have him come and stay with me on and off for 2 years, whilst he now was finishing his high school, finishing his matric, etc. It was in that process of the actions, it was in the process of the life circumstances that I came to realize, hey, your purpose has changed or is in process of changing. It was in that awareness. And thank goodness for journaling, Ron, because that is the only place that we can land what's percolating inside us and find the meaning and the purpose behind life circumstances. Purpose then becomes the driver, and your actions then become bigger and better and more intentional because of the clarity of purpose. The change in the life circumstance, the change in the actions then drives you into a purposeful, intentional, meaningful life experience.
And I think that's so important because I think when it comes to purpose, people get gets confused between purpose and passion. And the reason why I mention it is a lot of people, and I was one of them, is always put follow your passion. But passion doesn't mean it's your purpose that you want to follow that passion. Sometimes it might be a gift of all of a sudden you landing up into something different, like yourself writing 2 books. And that was through life experiences, and that found a new purpose of like we're doing now, a podcast, because everything changes of where we want to go. You know, same as what we've done on, and I think what's also quite important that, and just get your take on this, is like every Friday morning, you and I have got an accountability partnership of giving, and the purpose, what we use, we work out your wins and challenges, and through that we can find our roadmap, what your purpose is really about, by creating a positive way going forward. What's your take on that, Barbara?
Well, I think the fact that we do have an accountability on a Friday, we have a conversation, we have a stepping forward, an action. The action talks into fueling the purpose. The action talks into the realization of the purpose. Again, I say it doesn't land on a silver platter. It is something that evolves. And so our accountability on a Friday helps us evolve through action, conversation, and taking the next step. So it has become purposeful for me to have an accountability with you on a Friday morning for the fact that I am growing myself, growing my business, opening my mindset to doing things differently because of AI, because of your involvement with AI, and the combination of AI and the human perspective from my side. The combination of the two is showing us something that has become very relevant in the business world, the threat of AI in the workplace, taking away jobs, making people feel insecure. But the fact of the matter is, they go hand in hand, they work well together. So the purpose of our Friday mornings together, I believe, is still in process. I think we have created some purpose in doing the Winter Warrior podcasts. We've done the Yes, Yes, You podcasts. Those are purposeful, absolutely. But there will be more to come. There will be more to come in the development of both you and me from a business perspective, a personal perspective, from how we are going to work together and work forward.
And Barbara, the reason I put that forward is, and that's why I say that purpose, especially question 3, what I put forward on purpose, is I just looked at the roadmap. We're going now for a year on accountability, and I just looked at what I've accomplished through the wins and challenges of you. I have to be accountable to what I've achieved, what I'm going to do for the week, for the next week. And now my purpose has changed to the new direction. And I think this is what's important of purchasing the book Winter Warrior on the 8 dimensions, because that forms part of what we want to achieve, not what we, but what I want to achieve in my business. Each one's got their own business gift or passion, but how you apply your purpose in going forward. So, question 4 is, how does someone know the difference between ego-driven ambition and true soul-led contribution?
Ego is more the insecurity and the seeking of approval from outside. The soul is more the personal, deep impact we want to make. It is the soul that drives the ego, not the other way around. It is the soul that, in its clarity, in its glimpse of understanding what it is that it is about, that the ego can be used positively rather than negatively. So let me give you an example. 9 years of age, I am standing on my parents' driveway, a house that extends across 2 acres of land. And I say to the heavens, what more is there to life than this? My soul was crying out for direction, for the more of life. My ego would have said, well, what's the matter with you? Why don't you know? Follow in the footsteps of your family. My family was not the same mindset as mine. My contribution to my family is that I have a different mindset. Not that it is appreciated or accepted, but that I know that my mindset adds value from a different place because it's mine and because it is different. So ego plays a very difficult part in this process, and one has to keep on checking in that it is not your ego that is taking over, but that you go inside, you go deep, and know what your life mission is, your life task is, and work consciously with that. Here's the issue. Most people don't know what their life task is. And that's where the frustration is. And that's where the ego takes over, because the ego is strong. Ron, the ego is strong. And if we are not in control of the ego, the soul doesn't have a chance to show itself, because the soul whispers. The soul has little glimpses of light, little moments.
No,
The soul needs to be listened to very quietly.
and Barbara, and the reason why I like what we're speaking about, when I got into business, and I think more of that was ego because I tried to fit into other people's dreams. And I made other people wealthy, but not myself, because I wanted to fit in. And I think this is where this chapter on 8 dimensions plays such a vital role. And 99% of people don't know what their purpose is. So, guys, read chapter 4. Make sure you understand 8 dimensions of life. Barbara's details will be in the description of YouTube as well as different social medias. You can get the book on there. So, question 5, you talk about trusting the true self. What actually gets in the way of people doing that consistently?
I think the simple answer is fear. We go into self-doubt. We go into remembering rejection and our conditioning. We go into judgment and needing approval. We go into the external rather than internal because we've been taught to fit in, not to stand out, and especially women, not to have a voice. I'm glad to say the younger generation females are doing that somewhat better. But they too have huge conditioning around this. Last week, Friday, I was in a woman in leadership experience with women, women who are in their midlife, their 40s, battling with a voice, battling with a thought that is original. It is not by coincidence, by the way, that my throat this afternoon has battled, because this is what women's energy is about. Women are still too concerned about the approval and permission outside for the inside to happen. And true self is finding what it is that's true to self and being in alignment with that, one with self and then externally. It's not an easy task, Ron, but it is possible to be able to stand in your skin and say, I am happy with myself in this beingness. I am happy in my growth. I am happy with where I have been and where I'm going to. Even if it's scary and the unknown, we can take from past experiences the understanding and the knowing that we've landed on our feet, not once, but several times, and that this time too, we will land on our feet in true alignment with true self.
And Barbara, it's quite interesting that you speak about women. And, through my financial literacy journey, I've seen that a lot. And I look at it, wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend gets engaged. They've got these dreams in the age of 20, 21. They've got the career and they're going to say, yes, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, whatever it is. Till the wife gets pregnant and the child changes everything. Then she puts everything on hold for 18 years. Yeah, that's just one side of the story. Yeah, how do they get back onto their feet? And when they realize that occupation is there, they realize, hang on, I can't do it anymore. AI is there. And all of a sudden they feel defeated. I'm just using a worst case scenario. But working through purpose, and the key comes in fear. And fear stands for false evidence appearing real. But how do you do that? You start looking at your own life by journaling, reading chapter 4, looking at the 8 dimensions of life and applying that, and work with people like yourself to get that girl, that woman, or that person or that entrepreneur onto the next way of thinking, because life changes by the second. It's not like 10 years ago when it was yearly. When you open your eyes tomorrow morning, there's a new AI. There's something else that's going to do it. AI is just a tool. You don't have to fear it. You just have to embrace it to make it work. So, Barbara, the last question is, because we on the 20 minutes, is if someone is listening and feels disconnected from meaning right now, what is the first step you would tell them to take?
Take a small step in the right direction. Sometimes the disconnect is so overwhelming. The misalignment is so overwhelming. The future is so unknown. The past has been difficult. The present is difficult. Just embrace now. And how I do that is I sit in my yellow velvet chair. I have a hot chocolate drink. I have a journal and color pens, and I write in my journal. I cry if I have to, I scream if I have to. It all goes in the journal. The journal is non-judgmental. The journal is your best friend and accompanies you right through life, through every life circumstance. Find self enough to be calm and still and be real in the moment. Because just pushing it down doesn't work. That just erupts later. And that's where the fights happen. That's where the misalignments happen. That's where threats of divorce happens, and it gets out of hand. Use the journal, small step in the right direction. And from there, you will find clarity because the journal will help you find clarity. It will bring the subconscious to the conscious of actually, you know what? I know a next step and a next step and a next step. And Ron, that is intuition. And follow the intuition because the intuition has come because you've asked the question. If you ask a question, be ready to listen for the answer. But we're so busy in the noise of life and in the noise of self-talk that we're not listening. That's where the journal comes in, because when you have to write it out, what's going on in here, you don't only hear it, but you see it. And when you can see it, Ron, you can understand, one, all the crud that's going on in here. But secondly, you can process. And thirdly, you get to see the genius of yourself. Fourthly, take action. And fifthly, acknowledge alignment. You're okay. Let fear go. You're okay. You have some clarity and you have a way forward.
Thanks for that, Barbara. And I want to finish off and say we all go through pain. And pain is the roadmap to your success, the roadmap to your recovery. But if you're going to sit and not write it down to figure out, and you start putting it through your journal, automatically new ideas will come through. Stop trying to please others, start pleasing self and grow self. Go read chapter 4, buy the book, Winter Warrior. And on that note, Barbara, have a wonderful day. See you on the accountability. And next week, Wednesday, we'll do chapter 4, part 2. Thanks, Barbara.
Five. Chapter
Oh,
5.
chapter 5.